Okay, so we're going to go straight to the text. And so we did our paragraph 1. And in paragraph 1, he laid out the 3 levels. Okay, so we're going to go into the summary. Right, the first level is Hispaalus of the natural soul, animal soul. Right, this is the Hispaalus, the emotional movement that generated through contemplation. It comes through seichel, right, and it contains the 5 levels which we studied before. Although the level 4 and level 5 ultimately require some revelation of the godly soul, okay, the godly neshama. Okay, and we went into details with that. Why is it? The level number 2 is when it's essential Hispaalus, it's Hispaalus atzmi, and of the godly soul, and that's when the soul gets fully revealed from its concealment, and it's not generated by the intellect, it's not generated by moichin. It is the essence of Elokus expressing itself. Okay, that's a second level. Now, the third level, it's interesting. When it's he'ara of the nefesh Elokis, as they become enclosed through the seichel and the midas. Okay, meaning it's the same Hispaalus, okay, but it's already gets enclosed in the mind and in the heart. And these are lower than the soul essential Hispaalus. So level number 3 is lower than level number 2. Okay? But they are higher than the Hispaalus of the godly soul, of the animal soul, I'm sorry. So if we look at the letter, now why is he mentioning level number 2 before expressing level number 3? Okay? It's a very good question. Now, my speculation of this, it is because there is no difference between the quality of the Hispaalus. It's the same Elokus getting revealed. Okay? But the difference is whether it's getting enclosed in the moichin and in the heart or not. So that's why they put it this way. But truly, it's level number 1 is nefesh habahamis, level number 2 is nefesh Elokis, and level number 3 is the Hispaalus Elokis. Okay. So, and what was what the essential shift of this paragraph is that the difference between this level, right, is not about the emotional intensity. It's not how intensely we feel it inside our body, but about the source. The animal soul Hispaalus is generated through human intellectual engagement. Okay? Is that when we process, we understand, our awareness shifts, that's how our Hispaalus grows. Okay, now the godly soul Hispaalus is Elokus itself moving within the person. Okay, and that's where it becomes very, very, very interesting. Okay, so we're going to go back to the text and we're going to move forward. Now he's going to be explaining new things to us, and actually very interesting things. Okay. V'hine lahavin maus inyan Hispaalus Elokus mahu. Right? In order for us to understand the essential nature of what Hispaalus of Elokus is, because up until now, we mainly stressed on the Hispaalus of the animal soul. This is the whole second chapter. We were discussing level by level and so on and so forth. Now, for us, there was something much closer because this is how we mostly operate. We operate from the point of the animal soul. For us to understand what it is the Hispaalus of the godly soul will require some work, okay? והנה עצם עניין ההיספאילוס אלוקי הוא דבeikus הנפש האלוקיס, והמשכסה אחרי אלוקים בבחינת עצמיוס וטיביס, ולא מצד השכל והשגה. The very essence of divine Hispaalus is deveikus. If you remember chapter 1, we discussed about deveikus versus ava. It's not ava, it's deveikus, okay, of the divine soul, and it's being drawn after Elokus in an essential and natural manner, and not as a result of intellect and comprehension. Meaning the connection completely baseless. I'm connected to God, just there is no comprehension. The mashal given for that is like a little baby that follows the mother or the father, parent. They recognize that this is the parent and they just follow. They don't know why. There's no why there. Okay, it's just is. So this deveikus, right, this connection that Nefesh Elokis has towards Hashem has nothing to do with intellect. Now, Nefesh Bahamis is not like that. Nefesh Bahamis is drawn because she understands, because she has this awareness, but not Nefesh Elokis. Nefesh Elokis she has only one awareness. That's all what I have is Elokus. Okay. כמו שהאדם הוא דבוק לחייו הגשמי, למעלה מן הטעם, כן הוא דבקוס להשם כי הוא חייך. Just as a person is attached to his physical life beyond reason, right? A person doesn't have to get justification why he's alive. I mean, hopefully he doesn't, right? But a healthy person doesn't ask that question. He just is attached to his own life. So the same is the attachment to Hashem, for he is your life. It says, Ki hu chayech. If you remember, we're going back to the first chapter, we're answering a lot of questions because the first chapter seemed like interesting. On one hand, it proved that there is an understanding of love. The other one was the deveikus. So we was left with a question. So chapter 2 answered the question about the love. Now we are going to the understanding of what deveikus means. Okay. Now v'hagama melubash Hispaalus zois b'hasaga. And now, although it has nothing to do with reason, but although this Hispaalus is enclosed within the hasaga, within the comprehension, mikol mokom ikr eina mitzad hasaga. Nevertheless, its essence is not from comprehension. Mitzad rochva v'omka, from its breadth or its depth, right? Because if we are talking about Hispaalus of our godly soul, for example, learning Torah, it requires a lot of comprehension, but it has nothing to do with it. It's not the reason why the Nefesh Elokis is connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It cleaves to it. Not at all. It has nothing to do with it. It's rooted because of the essential connection it has with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It also understands it, because it learns Torah. That's what Neshama is doing Gan Eden, right? They learn Torah on a much higher level. But that's not why it's connected. You see the difference? Like the why it's connected is etzem be'etzem. That's why. Like she can't see herself as being separate from Hashem. It brings a lot of tar to her, if she is. But it has nothing to do with comprehension. Okay? Rak mitzad elokus shebahasaga, but rather from the elokus that's in the comprehension. So why she's involved in the learning Torah, okay, and understanding how Hashem works, it's because she senses elokus within that comprehension. Okay? Not because of comprehension, but because of elokus that's in that comprehension. Masha'enkin Hispaalus haseichel. But whereas the Hispaalus of the intellect is different. Umitzad etzem ha'asaga. It's from the essence of the comprehension. So comprehension itself, what triggers the Hispaalus. Here is elokus that in the comprehension that triggers that Hispaalus. Okay? See the difference? Ubechush anu roim ha'efresh ben hasaga lebchinas elokus shebebchinas. Okay, bechush anu roim. Right? we sense, right, empirically. I guess that's the translation of it. But chush is the sense. With the senses, we see hahefresh, the difference between hasaga, between the comprehension, lebchinas elokus shebahasaga, right, within the comprehension itself, and the aspect of elokus that's in the hasaga. Okay, so what's the difference? Be'inyan shmias ha'oizen b'sechel enoshi l'divrei Elokim chayim. Regarding the hearing with the ear, an intellectual concept of the human wisdom versus Chassidus. Okay, so there's a human wisdom, and Baruch Hashem, we know a lot of human wisdoms, right? For example, like math and all that type of studies. And versus Chassidus, what's the difference? The difference is like this. Shehispal hasechel me'od yoser, okay, mishmiat sechel achar enoshi v'gam etzel liyigia klal. Right? When we are talking about for the intellect becomes far more deeply moved from hearing Chassidus than from hearing another human intellectual idea. And it does not even require exertion. Okay, why is it? That when we hear Chassidus, right, it's easier for us to be mispile versus when we hear, a concept. Why is it? Even though the other intellect, right, we're talking about human intellect, an idea, may be deeper and broader. Why is it? Because Hispaalus sheba ein aroch klal Hispaalus b'sechel Eloki. Nevertheless, the Hispaalus there bears no comparison whatsoever to the Hispaalus within the divine intellect. והגם בשכל אלוקי עצמו יש שאין לו כל כך כוח השמיעה להבין ולהשיג, אף על פי כן מתפעל מאוד יותר משמיעתו. And even with the divine intellect itself, there are cases where a person does not have so much capacity of hearing, of understanding, and a grasp, and yet it becomes far more moved than his level of comprehension would suggest. Right? We see that. A lot of times we don't even understand what was the idea. Okay, we go to a particular class, or we hear something, or we learn a mimer. We don't even know what it is so tangibly that we can actually go ahead and teach it to somebody. But yet we get so excited about certain things. And then you're like, what's the story? It's not in proportion, okay? Because I cannot be moved by mathematical calculation unless I fully understand what it is. Okay, we all agree with that, right? I'm not walking around like, I don't know, oh, wow, you heard about this. It doesn't work like that, because I have to understand, whenever it's a human intellect, I have to fully understand the depth of it in order to arouse the Hispaalus. What he's saying is that when it comes to Chassidus, it may not necessarily be so, okay? Definitely not in a proportion, okay? I could be strongly moved by the word of Chassidus, even if I don't really 100% understand. Okay, so my Hispaalus is not fully based on my comprehension. Okay, I'm sure you guys had similar experiences.
With math, yes. Many times you don't understand. But Chassidus is Geschmack, even if you don't understand.
Okay, good, great. So that's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. With math, it's like, if you don't understand this, you're not going to be mispiled from it. You're like, okay. I remember when Professor Branover was giving us lectures, a few times I heard him, and he would talk about certain things we completely were oblivious, but he himself was so moved. So he would talk very emotionally, like you saw that he was mispiled from it. But we were all listening there. We had no concept. We had no grasp of what the guy was talking about. So we were not moved. We were just moved by his being moved, But we ourselves, I don't even remember what he was talking about. Okay, v'yesh, okay, v'yesh sheyesh l'koach hasaga, and there are those who possess the power of comprehension. And there are those who have the deep comprehension to understand broadly in divine matter. That's key point, right? And yet they're not moved at all. And they are those simple ones, they're moved at all. What's going on here, right? Okay. Echad ve'echad, right? And one, ve'iyafshar, right? Lo mitzad, what is it?
Yeah, yefshar, right.
Yeah, ve'iyafshar lo mitzad menias kisharon alev. And we cannot say that this is due to the deficiency of the heart capacity, because it's not. He's capable of doing that, right? But all of a sudden he's not. He's blocked. Why is it? For he may be God-fearing in his heart and wholehearted in his service of action. And nevertheless, in divine comprehension, although he understands and grasps according to the breadth of his intellectual vessel, nevertheless, he has no Hispaalus from the comprehension. Right? But rather his hearing and understanding remains distant. Okay? Therefore, one must say that his Hispaalus is not merely from the pleasure of comprehension alone. But rather from the source of the soul, right? Was a chutzav haneshama, from where it was chiseled out. Okay? Whose root derives from a more exalted source. Okay? And that's why he doesn't get this, the same level of Hispaalus. Okay, v'hainu, and it means the one whose soul is rooted in the level of bria. Therefore, he has this sense that he has this sense specifically to be aroused by this divine comprehension. And it could be that he's not the great intellectual capacity in the human wisdom, and therefore he will not be moved by human intellect. But when it comes to Chassidus, he all of a sudden jumps up. You see why? Because his reason is not that his mind is sophisticated. The reason is because that's where his source of his neshama is coming from. Okay. And one whose soul root is in the level of ruach of Yetzirah, he only is in the category of fearing and loving Hashem as in the heart. And he's not moved by divine comprehension because his main thing is more on the lave level. Okay? Because ruach, that corresponds to the level above. Yetzirah, that's, the 6 midas. Right? And that one whose shayrish, the level of the neshama, is on the level of asiya, urak tamim ba'avodase b'maseh. He only tamim wholeheartedly in the service in action. He just does mitzvahs. So it's interesting that he lays out this whole understanding that it does not come from the level of brain capacity. It really, when we are talking the Hispaalus of the godless soul, it mainly comes from the source of the neshama, where the neshama is sourced. When we're talking about the the level of Hispaalus of animal soul. Her rising up had to do with her level of comprehension, with her level of avoida, with her level of exertion of how much she puts an effort in understanding and refining her brain and her heart capacity. So that had to do with the capacity of the brain and the heart. When we are talking about the Hispaalus of the Nefesh Elokus, it's bichlal, has nothing to do with the capacity. It has to do where the source of the neshama is coming from. If the neshama is coming from Bria, so the person is going to be excited about the divine comprehension, about Chassidus, but may not necessarily be excited about other types of seichel. Why? Because it doesn't have to have necessarily the capacity. It may also, but doesn't have to. When we're talking about the neshama of Yitzira, that's where all love and fear is floating. Okay, so it has nothing to do, it's not derived from the understanding. You see, by Nefesh Abahamis, the more I understand, the more I fear, the more I love. But he has nothing to do with understanding. It's the source of the neshama. It's the inner calling of the essence of the neshama. The other one is more coming from Asiya. So these type of people, they're more in action. These are the people of action. Okay, performing the mitzvahs, etc., etc. Okay. So that's, we see that we're going to go further with Rat Hashem, paragraph 3, where we're going to learn that more difference between Elokus. We're going to take a long time to understand because it's truly two different paradigms. It's not the same. Okay, it's really a whole different system, how these two systems work. And when we will start understanding them, it also will help us to identify whenever what we are experiencing, what's the source for it? Is that the Nefesh Bahamas Hispaalus, or that's Nefesh Elokus Hispaalus? And that's the fun part of it. So are there any questions up until now?
So maybe I will give a little bit of heads up. How would you tell? Many times you feel like excitement, like in nature, or even if it's from a shiur, whether you understand, you don't understand. How is really that you could distinguish, or does it matter where it's coming from? Does it matter? You sit and analyze. Where is it coming from? You're just happy. You just feel special. I don't know how to describe it.
The question is whether you need to know why a person is feeling this way. It's bichlal, just to know for yourself where the person is standing, right? I mean, we could be more on a flow, right? A person might choose the avodah, like, okay, whatever comes, kol haba baruch haba type of thing,
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine. It's not like right or wrong. The problem with that is that we're not mastering. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's whatever comes. It's not like we are mastering.
You mean not working hard?
No, it's not about working hard. It's like imagine a person is I don't know, bakes bread. Okay, a baker.
All right.
This week, this is the chales. That's how they come. Like, for example, now I'm into sourdough. Okay. So there was time, as long as it's a sourdough, meaning like I don't put artificial yeast, commercial yeast, it's considered in the gather of sourdough. But then there's a whole chachma bifnei atzma there, It's like this, it's like that, and you have to, pull and stretch. It's like a whole mahalach. And you see, if you want to master it, it's a different processing that you need to do. If you want to master any skill, it requires you learning the steps, understanding how to work with this dough, understanding how to develop the gluten, And then you get a perfect loaf, right? Now, there are those, I have a friend, not necessarily. She just puts all the ingredients, she puts the, the starter, and it rises. Is that considered to be sourdough? Yes, but it's the sourdough. It tastes okay, but it's not you understand what I mean? Like, it's not a real sourdough, put it this way. It's a real, but it's not
with all the details, with all the
exactly right. And the results also not who knows what, right?
yes,
Like the
doesn't look
results, the
like
bottom line, it's not the same. So with any skill, there are doctors. I'm sure we're aware of some doctors that are doctors, right? And you feel that you know more than them, right? And there are doctors, they're professors, they are geniuses, right? They like the whole world wants to go to them, right?
yeah.
So it's like, so the same thing is within ourselves, right? In our avodah, we could be like, okay, listen, I'm doing whatever comes to me natural. I'm doing whatever requires an effort. I'll just skip over it. It's also, I mean, there's a space for that. But if a person really wants to sharpen his chush, let's say, right, and really understand himself, his own mastery, like, okay, what's going on with me now? Like, when I started the River of Change was a tremendous work for me, just to understand, like, for example, sometimes we feel stuck, sometimes we feel dumb, sometimes we feel irritated. Where is this coming from? And it's so interesting for me. It was a mind opening to trace back what happened, how that incident made me feel, okay, how it resonated in my body, that I'm getting this result. Now, you might think like, Mila, why do you need to know this? Because if I know the hatchala, you understand?
Yeah.
It's much easier for me to master that. So when I want to think that way after similar experiences, right, I will already prepare myself and prime myself that I will not come to this type of conclusion after this type of experiences. Do you understand what I mean? That's called self-mastery. So what it does, it's like you no longer a victim of the circumstances.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you become in charge of yourself, in charge of how you think, of how you feel. And, it's not like whatever comes. You know what I mean? Like it's not random. So that helps Avodah to know, like, hey, what am I experiencing? Where is this coming from? Is it something, is that Nefesh Elokus or that's Nefesh Bahamas? Do you know? Like,
Yeah.
Because if I'm telling, I do not understand how this works, and therefore I cannot do it, who do you think speaks?
Again,
I do not understand how this works, and
yeah.
therefore I cannot do it. Who speaks?
Yeah. The Nefesh Bahamis.
Exactly. Because Nefesh Bahamis capable of doing things, whatever, in Kedusha, only when it understands. Understand? Now, so you right away detect it and you understand what to answer to this type of thoughts, right? But if you can detect this, it becomes like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with this. Like it just becomes like a sense of panic. Whenever there's lack of clarity, that's where panic goes in.
It's true.
Is there a need to always answer to our thoughts?
If they paralyze us from acting out, yeah, from acting, for sure. I mean, I don't know about you. Like if I need to make a decision and I have all kinds of thoughts coming my way, okay, and it paralyzes me. Yeah, like I cannot act, I cannot make decision, I cannot, like for sure you need to sort it out. Otherwise, you are in this fear state, So the goal is to refine Nefesh Elokus, Nefesh Bahamis, with the imuna that Nefesh Elokis has. Do you understand? For example, I don't understand how this works. Therefore, I cannot do it, right? So all of a sudden, the Nefesh Elokis's response would be, you don't need to understand everything. Hashem is the one who works it out, right? So, like you're teaching in a way, you give that awareness to the Nefesh Bahamas, because in the end, who does? Nefesh Bahamas executes an action, right? So she either has two ways. Either she's being pushed aside, okay, and commanded to, through our ratzon, this is what we're going to be doing, right? But that requires a lot of clarity, a lot of gevura, to completely silence Nefesh Bahamas. Or we can work with it. Do you understand? We could actually, that's the whole point, is that we in a way elevate her. And then when Nefesh Bahamas, as we discussed on level number 4 and level number 5, right, that's Kavana Shabalev and Ratzon Pashrut from Nefesh Bahamas to the 5 levels, okay, that's where she gets transformed. Okay, and we want the Nefesh Bahamas to be transformed, not just pushed aside. Okay, and take over the combat. Like, for example, what we see now with Iran, right? I mean, now the enemy is not transformed, is eliminated. Right? The transformation would be, that's a lower level, actually. It comes b'derech hamilchama. That's when Geula is coming in the ways of a war. Okay, but in a true, like for example, in the times of Shlomo HaMelech, all the nations were elevated to a higher level of consciousness, that they didn't want to fight. Okay, they were able to peacefully resolute with each other about how they wanna things. But that was because Shlomo HaMelech was on such a level that he broadcasted shalom into the world. Yeah, so that was a completely different awareness that he himself had of Elokus, okay, through his wisdom, and he was able to broadcast it to the whole entire world. And that's why in his time there was no milchama, because the nations themselves were elevated. And that's what a true work of Melech HaMashiach also is to bring that awareness. When it comes down to derech HaMilchama, it's not, I mean, it's better than, no milchama, obviously, but it's always a lower level. Darkei Noam and Darkei Shalom are usually the higher level, and that requires a lot of broadcasting on the Yiddish. So, yeah. Any other questions and reflections so far? I know, Shana, you are so quiet today. No? Okay, so let's move on. We have 15 more minutes, so we're not going to lose time. And we're going to move on to paragraph 3 and see how much we could cover. Oh, I see Shana wrote something. Oh, Shana's processing. Okay, good. Okay, beautiful. Shana Bas Bracha Rivka. That all of the zuchus of this class should definitely go into. Should be whatever you're going through should be a whole beautiful clarity, Bezrat Hashem, with least emotional whatever else, we usually come in. But the decision should be, coming with ease. I just heard something very, very beautiful, that a lot of times we put our efforts into knocking on closed doors. And the true effort should be on really engaging ourselves with open doors. Yeah, we always have open doors, and our engagement and our effort and our ability to connect to people should be with open doors, whoever's open doors, because when we get involved with closed doors, it takes so much of our energy and draining, and we're trying to prove something to somebody, and it's just frustrating, and that may not necessarily be our avodah. Avodah is to deal with, with open doors. Whatever doors is open, we should definitely use the opportunity. Because if we are dealing with closed doors, those doors that are open are waiting for our energy, waiting for our message, and waiting to hear what we have to give to the world. And we are depriving them of this. So we should definitely focus on open doors. That's, it really touched me deeply, this message I heard. Okay, paragraph 3, let's go. Ve'ata yesh loimar, ma'u ha'afresh ben Hispaalus of Elokus, the neshama Elokis, ben Hispaalus of Elokus, the nefesh hativis. Right now, it must be explained what is the difference between the Hispaalus of Elokus, of the godless soul, and the Hispaalus of Elokus, of the animal soul. Okay, the be'emes, but truly, masha nefesh hativis mitpa'eles be'elokus, gam ken eina mitzad hasaga atzma, rak mitzad elokus shebahasaga. For in truth, when the animal soul is moved by elokus, it is too not from the comprehension itself, but from the elokus within the comprehension. Okay, and now what is he doing is really, a very classical thing, that when he will say something, right, a particular klal, and we might think like, oh, we already have like a nice, beautiful picture. He shatters that understanding. And that also shatters our own ego, that we think that we understand certain things. And it also shatters a certain limitation of our human brain. Okay? Because he literally said just a few lines above that Nefesh Baham's comprehension is because she understands. Okay? Now he says, well, you know what? Be'emes, it's not like that. Be'emes, even Nefesh Hativis, when she understands because of Elokus Shebahasaga. So why is he doing it? It's a little play with our mind to see if they remain flexible and not concrete, because Seichel Enoshi likes to put things in a nice, beautiful boxes and keep them organized, so-called, right? But that's also a limitation, because Elokus is fluid, right? Elokus is not something that could be cemented. It's true on one perspective, and then a few pages later, we see something new coming out, right? Because it's constantly moving and evolving. So it's very good to keep in mind that whatever our comprehension is at this given moment is just this given moment at this given time with the given information. That's what the person understands, right? That's what the B'chein is. But once we learn something new, something deeper, right? Whenever you see the Rebbe going deeper, everything what we knew up until now, it's wrong. Not wrong in a sense like, oh my gosh, there's something really wrong with it. But it's limiting. It becomes a limitation. What was light before becomes a limitation because of the growth. Because the deeper we go, the more we grow. Okay, the more we grow, what we used to understand before, it becomes suffocating. So we need to move forward. Okay, and for that, we need to have more kalim. So the flexibility of the kalim is very, very essential. And that's one of the illustrations of how they do it. Like what we knew before, like literally a page of before, it's no longer enough, because if we go deeper in truth, even the animal soul is moved by Elokus, which in the concept, but not just the comprehension. And what's the proof? Ra'aya ledavar she'ena mitpail bahasaga sechel acher she'inenu ina meleki. And the proof of this is that it's not moved by the comprehension of another type of intellect that is not divine matter. Okay, so once the Nefesh Bahamas gets trained into understanding Chassidus, it's not going to have the same level of Hispaalus from mathematical equation versus from learning Chassidus. Okay, and there's also another proof. Right, that this type of Hispaalus actually causes him a movement, a displacement from his original state. שהוא הכירס כל הרצון הזוירס שיש לו בעניין העולם הזה, ורק להיות לו רצון אחד להשם לבדו. Because what a true study of Hispaalus with good hisbonenus, what is causing him is displacement from his original state by uprooting all the foreign desires he has in worldly matters, leaving him only with one desire, for Hashem alone. So for Nefesh Bahamas to ever come to this type of level where she leaves all the desires of Olam Hazeh and really wanting Hashem, obviously that was not because she understands things, but because of godliness that are in these concepts, even for Nefesh Bahamas. Okay, so this is the two rayas, right? She doesn't have the same intensity when she comprehends other Olam Hazeh concept, and also the Hispaalus causes the Nefesh Bahamas, okay, to be moved from its original state of worldly desires and wanting Hashem alone. And this cannot come about merely from comprehension, but specifically from sensing Elokus in it. Imkain, and if so, ma'u fresh ben Hispaalus Elokus shebenefesh Elokis litpalus Elokus shebenefesh shativi. So now we came with a simple question. If so, if you're saying that even Nefesh Bahamas is cleaving to Hashem, she's sensing Hashem in this concept, okay? So what is the difference between the Hispaalus of Elokus of the divine soul and the Hispaalus of Elokus of the animal soul? Right? That just obviously they are different. So how is that difference is really reflected? Okay, but however, in truth, right, the essential difference between them, that in the nature of the comprehension itself, right? From the creation itself, from which one is moved in Elokus, right? And not from the Hispaalus, the way it's enclosed within the comprehension, right? So the Hispaalus, the way she's mispelled from the godliness itself, there we see the difference, which is what? Although the Hispaalus of the animal soul and the Hispaalus of the divine soul, they can have no comparison. But there's one common ground. But nevertheless, both are forms of Hispaalus of Elokus, right? That's we know. Great. But the comprehension of the animal soul is the opposite in nature to the comprehension of the divine soul, as it will be explained, right? Right? The difference between these two comprehensions will be understood by prefacing what is stated in Etz Chaim, that the soul itself requires no rectification. Okay, why is it? So now we need to understand one thing, that the difference between Nefesh Elokis and Nefesh Bahamas is no longer about what they sense, Elokus or not, but in the way the actual understanding happens. Okay, so and what does it say in Etz Chaim? Okay, so the neshama does not require tikkun. Right? And this is because she's on the level of Atzilus, only that it is called Atzilus as it exists within the worlds of the Bri, Yitzir, and Asi. Okay? So now, remember, we spoke a little bit earlier that there are different types of neshama, where they're coming from. There are those neshamas that are coming from Bria, and then those that are from Yitzira, and those are from the Asiya, right? And the way they're being expressed in this world is through the dominance of, like if we watch it closely, we'll see somebody, is more, clings to, study Chassidus, and some that are more, working with Ava and Yira. There are those who work more with the Maisa Mitzvahs. So now he's saying something different. Now, not really different, a little bit deeper. He says that all the neshamas are laid, so quote, in Atzilus, right? Not just Stam in Atzilus, but in Atzilus that exists within the worlds of Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya. Okay, if I feel B'misha yesh lo rak nefesh da'asiya, right? And also those that are only coming from the nefesh of Asiya, hu b'bchinas Atzilus sheba'asiya. Okay, is in fact the level of Atzilus that's in Asiya. Okay, for all those who come also to our Shar Yichud class, we'll learn about the Lamed Kelim of Atzilus, the way it distributes itself in all the worlds and becoming the pnimis of all the worlds. So that's, we'll, actually he does mention here, Kiyadua the Lamed Kelim, the Zoh, the Atzilus, Nasu Nefesh Ruach V'Neshama the Biyah. It is known that the vessels of Zer Anpin of Atzilus, right, became the Nefesh Ruach and Neshama within the Biyah. Okay, Upirush Neshama Zois who kai ala nitzutz Eloki rak al b'chinas Nefesh Ruach v'Neshama davka, right? And the term soul, right, whenever we use the word Neshama, here does not refer to the divine spark, but to the actual level of the Nefesh Ruach and Neshama themselves. Okay, v'yadua the Nefesh Ruach v'Neshama b'chinas sechel b'hasaga u'mides u'maseh, right? And as we know that the Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama correspond to the intellect and comprehension. That's Neshama. Like your Ruach is to the emotions, and Nefesh is to the actions. V'hem b'chinas Atzilus shebebiyah, and all these are the very aspect of the Atzilus that are in the Bri, Yitzir, and Asiya. V'asaga atzmi asaga Elokis mamash, and therefore the comprehension itself is a true divine comprehension. Okay, so we see here that with nefesh, the Hispaalus of the Nefesh Elokis, okay, regardless to where she is situated, right? She's always connected through the Seder Hispaalus to the Atzilus. Okay, so that's just the reality, right? So that's even if she's on the level of Asiya, but it's still, Atzilus in the world of Asiya. She always had that through Pnimis HaKelim, she's all constantly rooted and being nurtured through the world of Atzilus. Masha'enkin Nefesh HaTivis. Now, Nefesh HaTivis has a little bit different Hispaalus. Shenimshach mi'av ve'ein, right? That is actually being drawn down through one's father and mother. Right, and from the natural soul. Okay, which is where, as we learned in Tanya, that they are coming from the garment of Noga, Klipas Noga. Hamastir al etzem elokus, right? That is concealing the essence of elokus. So that you see that it's exactly the opposite. That the Hispaalus of the nefesh of Bahamas is exactly the opposite of what the nefesh Elokus. In nefesh Elokus, it is always connected to the level of Atzilus. With nefesh Bahamas, is exactly the opposite. It's coming from the Hispaalus of the mother and father, what they have been thinking through the own levushim of the nefesh Bahamas, and they're all coming from the garments of Noga, Klipas Noga, which in essence, the whole point is to conceal the essence of Elokus. Ve'in kein, hahasaga mitzad atzma, hi b'bchinas yesh. So she, therefore, the comprehension, meaning the whole hasaga, the way she comprehends things, it's coming from the consciousness of yesh. Okay, by nefesh Elokis, we see that it's coming from the consciousness of ayin, because the world of Atzilus is the world of ayin. And by nefesh Elokis, Bahamas, we see exactly the opposite. She's coming from the klipas noga. Klipas noga is yesh. Okay. Rak mitzad shemeir ba'or Eloki, but because it's klipas noga, it's a shiny klipa, right? There is or Eloki there. Rak mitzad that shines in it or Eloki. Tithapech lefi shah olo olam b'tzadik gamur. Right, it can be transformed temporarily or permanently in the case of Tzadik Gomer. Right, because she will be able to grasp the bitul of Elokus. Now, by Neshama, it's differently. Masha'enkin b'bchinas ha-neshama. Ne'emar ba she'akadosh baruch hu noten bo neshama. Whether regarding the soul, it says that Hashem blesses her, right, and gives to him the soul. And this refers to the Ein Sof, enclosed within the 10 spheres of Atzilus. Hanikra zer anpin da Atzilus, hu hamamshich or hanashama alidei lamed yud kelim shabod b'biyah. Right, so that's called Zer Ampin of Atzilus, which draws down the light of the soul through the vessels of the Biyah. Ikiyidua gamken the pnimis hakelim ham bechinas elokus afilu b'olam asiyah v'shorish hanashama hu mipnimis hakelim chulu v'dal. Right, and we also know that the inner dimension of all the kelim is from elokus, is godliness, even in the world of asiyah. And because the root of the neshama, right, is in the dimension of the vessels, therefore, she constantly connected to this inner flow of godliness and has constant bittul, right? All the pnimis hakelim of the world of Asiyah, going in clothing itself in the world of Bria, Yitzira and Bria and Atzilus. So there's a constant bittul flowing. Now with Nefesh HaBahamas, it's not like that. With Nefesh Bahamas, her whole comprehension is in the way of Yesh. By Nefesh Elokis, the whole comprehension is in the state of Ayin. So from now on, paragraph 4, 5, and 6, we will see how he sees that the way they understand things are different. We all agree that the Hispaalus on both ends coming from the Elokus. That's already a common denominator. But the whole processing, how they get to it, by Nefesh Elokis is different than by Nefesh Bahamas. Okay, so now we're going to be more dealing with really dissecting and understanding how they think differently. They think in different terms. And B'ezrat Hashem, slowly, we will demystify the process that happens with these two beautiful entities that live right within us. Okay, any questions so far? I think we did great with the 2 paragraphs. That's huge. I hope I did not put you to sleep.
I want to ask you something. No, you're enlivening us. It's the opposite of putting us to sleep. So thank you. I want to ask you, can you tell me more you made a sentence, and the sentence was, be available to those who are open and not the opposite. Can you tell me more, like, what you're talking about?
What do you mean by being able to those who open?
You said the people who are open go there, but the ones who are not, it's expended. You said in your experience, there's a lot of expended energy that is wasted. What were you talking about?
Oh, the doors that are being opened. Oh, I'll tell you what it is. Like, for example, we live life, right? And we want to do certain things. We want to express ourselves. This is a basic of human nature, right? A person has the inner calling and they want to express themselves, right? So there are some doors that are going to be closed and some doors that are going to be open. For example, like somebody just wrote here, right, that they're going through something and they, you know, breaking a particular relationship, or even in relationships, like let's just take an example, the relationship, right? There are those people who like us and there are those people who don't like us, right? We're going to take it in a very like basic level, right? So a lot of times when we get rejected for whatever reason that may be, that's for the way we express ourselves, for the way we think, for different ideology that we want to represent, and different ways of going about things, right? Again, we're not talking about when we are being rude or chutzpahdik or anything like that. Just for females, this is who we are, and that's how we express ourselves. And there are some people who will be ridiculing us. Now, the goal is here to really see, what is it? Okay, is it something that a person is doing wrong, and therefore he should be mitakening this? That's one way of looking at it. But sometimes a person is not really doing something wrong. He's doing his shlichus or her shlichus. And there are people who just don't like that type of reality. Okay, so now what a person should do, that's a closed door. Okay. Now we could knock on that door and try to convince and try to have an open conversations and trying to prove ourselves and so on and so forth, consciously or subconsciously, right? We could do it, and we do it. But then there's a certain understanding that, we have, that, okay, they don't accept. Why should I waste my energy on people who reject me when there are so many people who feel attracted to me and want to hear my message? You see? Like, what's the nakuda here? And I think if we dig deeper a little bit, we will realize that maybe a person has a fear of rejection. So work with that fear. Okay, the fact that somebody is rejecting you or accepting you or whatever the story may be, it tells you something about you, right? So then we will reflect on it. And why should we waste our energy dwelling on relationship that never worked for us when there are so many opportunities, so many open doors where we could hang around with people who accept us, who appreciate us, who want to connect with us, who want to hear us, who we want to hear. Why are we wasting so much energy on proving ourselves with people who are no longer interested? They have their own life, so let them live their own life and let us live our life. If it's a very close relationship, like parents and so on and so forth, obviously a person needs to work a little bit harder to understand what are the triggers, what's going on, and so on and so forth. There are some times where we move on. Okay, so what allows us to move on without having this burden on our head, on our heart, like, oh my gosh, we are being rejected again. There's something wrong with us, or all the complexes of inferiority and all that stuff. What is that? No, sometimes it's just not your crowd. That's all. And when we change, we also we evolve. So our true connections, people who are truly connected to us, the etzem, they always will come along with us. Like I know friends from 20 years, 25 years that we meet and as if this time wasn't existing. Okay. Although they went on with their life, whatever they did, we went on with our life, whatever we did, but we still could connect and have fun and meet each other. And just, there was no time. Okay. And there are those people we meet, and all of a sudden we see that this time created a whole barrier between us. It's like it's endless. Like you look down, there's no point where we could actually communicate and meet. There is a reason for that. Because that person, to begin with, was your friend on a more shallow level. And therefore, b'pnimius, there was never a true connection. Because once it's a pnimius connection, it surpasses time, it surpasses any change. Because it's on a central level. So that's what I mean. There are some doors are open and there are some doors are closed, and let them be closed. I don't think it's a personal avodah to open every single door. We even see it by Gedolei Yisrael, and actually it's in the Megillah. Can you believe? Have you noticed in the Megillah we say about by Shoshanas Yaakov, right? That Mordechai was accepted with Roiv Echav, right? Did you ever think about it?
Yeah.
Why not everybody accepted Mordechai alone? By majority. He was accepted by majority of the Yidden. In the story of Purim, a person like the caliber of Mordechai Tzaddik was accepted by the majority of people. Obviously, it could have just said with all the people, but there were people, I guess, that had something to say about Mordechai. And that's okay. That didn't stop him from saving the whole nation from destruction. You know what I mean? Like, it's what we focus on. Are we focusing on closed doors, or are we focusing on all open doors and doing the best what we can?
Thank you.
I don't know if I
Thank you.
answered your question, Sipi, but I think
It made me think. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the hard questions, right? I mean, it's hard for me, so that's why for some reason, like, I felt very connected to the message. It's not an easy question, it's not technical, because when we're talking about close people, it's not technical. It never can be technical. So it's
Thank you.
sure. Okay. Sei gesund. Enjoy your day off. I don't know if you have a day off, but I do have a day off from school. And Bezrat Hashem, the whole new avodah of Geula, another type of Geula, which is Pesach, is coming up. And Bezrat Hashem. Oh, Shayna wants to wait. Sure, Hatzlacha Rabba, Hatzlacha Rabba. So Shayna, what is, let me see if I probably missed something. Can you define Hispaalus in the moment? What do you mean by Hispaalus in the moment, Shayna? Like I feel I'm out of the touch with a literal or practical meaning now. So that's, I'll tell you what it is. When we feel like that, there are certain things what I do. Whenever you feel this, it feels that you feel blocked, right? And that could be because of certain, instance that you described earlier. And that's okay. It's a very natural response, because if you're investing in something, it's a pieces of you go in there. Okay, and whatever. I mean, you rejected the person, whether the person rejected you, it doesn't matter, right? There was incompatibility. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Any breakup of any sort between the friends, between this, whatever that may be, it causes pain, and I don't think this pain should be ignored. This is something that we need to take time and heal. And the healing process involves proper sleep, proper nutrition, and just listening to ourselves. Like, what do I want to do? Do I feel like I want to sleep? Do I feel like I want to shift my energy? Do I feel like I need to? It's like a mourning process. It's like a little mourning process. We have to be very, very delicate, not to overstretch ourselves, and definitely not to shut ourselves down even more. Just let it process, acknowledge it, but without going into a depression. Acknowledge whatever pain is coming. Pain is good. Depression is not. When you feel pain, allow it to be felt. That's what Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. Depression is timtum halev. Timtum halev is when we don't feel anything, and that's even worse. Pain is good. Okay. I don't think we meant always to have this beautiful smile across our face and feeling everything is wonderful. A human being, it not always happens that way, and we accept it. But the goal is not to fall into melancholy or depression or anything like that. So, and I feel proper nutrition, proper hydration, sleeping, resting, less screen time, less scrolling. That's when we try to distract ourselves. Not saying distracted doesn't mean I have to focus on this thing, but whatever, it takes the processing longer when we get distracted with other things. But maybe doing art, something more hands-on, going to bake, allowing doing something for another person. Painting is very, very refreshing. You could do maybe neurographics or something like, even sports, nice showers, maybe going swimming, something that, opens up, or maybe going to a park, just like, to see something beautiful, to surround ourselves with beautiful things. And you could try rose quartz. It's a very nice, beautiful crystal that you could try. It's has a very nice vibration. Pink quartz, it's called. It's more, to heal the heart, the broken heart and all that. Self-love. Yeah, you just need to kind of, repair. Oh, you have a rose quartz, actually. That's beautiful. That's great. So just, maybe you want to, reach out to me with a private message. I could guide you a little bit of how to cleanse the stone and see what could be done. Okay, love you all. I need to get off, and all the best.